All right, benchmarks and KPIs. Who knows what benchmarks and KPIs are? Half of you. Cool. This is arguably the number one thing you need to have in your business, aside from offers and all that stuff, if you're going to scale, if you're going to create predictability into your business. This is a calculator that you all will be given during the lunch break. We're going to send this out to all you guys so you can calculate your benchmarks and KPIs. But I built this to essentially break down what your benchmarks are, what your KPIs are. So if you look on the left-hand side, you have your monthly revenue and revenue per sale. These are your goals, where you want to be, right? So if we were to look at this, I should have actually updated this for Conversionly to show you guys our goals. But our goal is to get to $1 million a month. That's one of our biggest revenue goals that we want to hit in our business. And then what is your revenue per sale? So how much money do you make when you have a sale? Well, Zach, I got 4 services. You shouldn't. You shouldn't. We already talked about that. So what do you make per sale, okay? And then what do you pay for a commission rate? That is the commission you pay your sales rep. I don't have a sales rep, so that's 0 for me. No, factor it in, because you can't build scalability off of a 0 sales commission. If you're going to scale your business, you're going to have to pay people to close for you, because you cannot spend all your time on the phone and continue to scale. So you need to factor in the sales commission that you will pay somebody in the future. And then you just collect that as profit in your pocket for now and pay yourself like a sales rep, okay? With that, what is your operating cost per sale? So for everything you sell, how much does it cost you to deliver it, right? So the hours associated, right? If we were to break this down for Conversionly, what we would factor into for the average client to build out their lead gen campaign, set up their system, write up their nurture sequences, recruit the ISA, place the setter, the recruiting cost of acquiring the setter to apply, all those different things we would factor into, and we would allocate that time into the deliverables for that client. That would be our operating cost to deliver, okay? Underneath that, you have your gross profit margin. That's automatically calculated for you, so when you guys get this sheet, make sure you understand that that is going to be a variable that will automatically be calculated for you. You're only editing the yellow cells, by the way. I forgot to tell you that, BT dubs. Then your desired net profit margin. So those of you that don't know finance, have a CFO, your marketing looks like a 12-year-old trying to balance a checkbook, it's okay. One thing that you do need to know is the golden ratio. So for a business to remain profitable, sustainable, and be able to consistently grow, you have a profit margin that you should stay in. And the desired net profit margin for every business, especially those of you operating digitally, this is 100% true for you guys, is 55%. So that means your cost per acquisition and your cost to fulfill should not be higher than 55% of your total revenue. That's because the other 45% goes into investing into masterminds like this, company travel, meals, the variable expenses that you guys can't account for because there's no predictability behind it, right? And then at the end of the day, you want to have about a 30% net profit, pre-tax profit. Underneath, in the yellow, these are going to be your goals for your variables. Don't worry about the first two. Those we included. This is taken directly from our program, so our media buyers actually teach this stuff. Don't have to worry about those two. It's not going to affect anything in this workbook for you guys. It does. We have a full ad suite that we give for tracking, and that's what those are more or less based off of. The ones that you do want to look at are going to be your opt-in rate, your booking rate, your show-up rate, your offer rate, and your close rate. So let's break these down. Opt-in rate. This is people that clicked on the ad. Maybe they went to the opt-in page of your funnel, or if you're running a lead gen campaign, they clicked on the ad, and they gave you their information. This is a lead, okay? Your opt-in rate should be, at minimum, 15%. If you're below 15%, there's some things that's got to be worked on, okay? Your booking rate. What is the percentage of people that go on to book an appointment? Now, this is going to be inclusive of your ads, your setters, your follow-up, all those things, the people that are booking appointments. So you typically want to be around a 25 to 40% depending on the industry. And if you're in insurance, it's going to be much more difficult for you to book appointments. You're a commodity. There's no way to spin that. Sorry. With that in mind, your show-up rates. How many people show up for that appointment? you should not be below 60%. But if you guys are just starting getting your funnels and things like that in place, you will be below 60%. It is what it is. You don't have all the friction in place that you need to acquire the highest quality lead. Therefore, your show-up rates are going to be lower. Tomorrow, we'll talk about why. Next is your offer rate. So everybody you get on the phone with, do you pitch them? That's a real question. You guys can answer. Yeah, raise your hand if you're pitching everybody you get on the phone with. Okay? And then everybody you pitch, do you give them an offer? Raise your hand if you're offering them. Who knows the difference between pitch and offer? Raise your hand if you do. 1, 2, 3 people. Okay, so the difference, Justin will go into this in more detail, but so you guys know when you're filling this out, your pitch, you show up, somebody shows up to your appointment, you start doing discovery with them, like Justin said, 30 minutes of discovery, and you find out there's no way this dude should be on our calendar. You shouldn't pitch that person. There's no reason to pitch that person. You're not pitching them on something that they don't need or you can't help them, right? So you don't pitch that person. And then just because you pitch somebody doesn't mean you offer them, because if you weren't able to overcome their objections before you get to that part of making your offer, you should never drop a price if they still have objections, right? So you pitch. Once you've handled all their objections, they're like, yeah, everything makes sense. This is exactly what I needed. Cool. Then you get an offer. The only objection you should have at that point is price, logistics, or the spouse, right? Those are the only objections you should have at that point. I could be wrong on that. We'll let Justin talk about it. He's a sales guru. Anyways, your close rate. How many of those people that you make an offer to do you close? Okay? You want to be at minimum 15%. From there, on the right-hand side, it's going to calculate everything else. Your impressions and clicks, don't worry about those. But it's going to tell you exactly how many leads you need to hit your goal of $100,000 a month in revenue and how much you can spend to acquire that lead. How many scheduled calls you need to book, how many actual calls do you take, right? Scheduling and actual, the difference, somebody who books an appointment versus somebody who shows up for the appointment. How many offers you need to make and how many sales you need to make. And then your cost metric is what you can spend for each of those things individually. So cost per lead, I could spend $35 in this scenario, right, based off the numbers that we added. For booking appointments, I could spend $234, and I can spend up to just about $400 to get somebody to show up for that appointment. And ultimately, at the end of the day, spend $2,600 to acquire a sale. If you do not know your cost per acquisition, you will struggle to scale because you will make emotional decisions in your business which will prevent you from making the right decisions, okay? So I highly, highly, highly encourage you, by the end of the day, if you do not know every single one of these numbers down to the dollar, fill out this workbook. It's a calculator. You fill out the yellow cells and everything else will be calculated for you. Moving on. This is the manual calculations. If you guys want to know how each of those things are calculated, your sales needed are calculated by taking your goal revenue divided by the revenue you make per sale. Your pitches needed are your sales needed, calculated in the previous metric, divided by your close rate. Appointments needed, right? You guys are going to get these slides. You can take a picture if you want to. You can write it down, but we're going to send these out at the end of the day. I'm not going to go through each one of those. Your KPIs are key performance indicators. These are the things when you're looking at what's the success of this ad campaign? What's the success of this funnel? What is the success of X, Y, and Z? Your KPIs are the metric that are going to give you the information that you need to determine success or failure, okay? Your cost per lead is arguably the most important. Just kidding. Who cares what it costs to acquire a lead as long as my cost per acquisition is within my KPI? At the end of the day, my click-through rate could be absolute trash, but if I'm acquiring a sale for $300 less because my sales reps are closing 10% higher than I anticipated, because we got guys like Nico, Donna, Darren, etc., then we're going to be crushing it. And I don't care what I'm paying per lead. I can spend more money. Was it Dan Kennedy? I think it was Dan Kennedy said that who can spend the most to acquire a sale will always win. Do we understand what that means? Whoever can spend the most amount of money to acquire a sale will beat out every single competitor that they go up against, right?
If you enjoyed that, Press here for the full unedited version of this episode. And don't forget to subscribe. Adios.